Believing can be a mental disorder, not every time, but when your strongest beliefs are messing with your sanity and straining your relationships with your loved ones, then you know you're in for a crash. Welcome to Brain Explained. Let's talk about what delusions actually are. In simple terms, delusions are fixed, false beliefs that a person holds on to, even when presented with evidence to the contrary. Now, these aren't just quirky ideas or unusual opinions. They're beliefs that can significantly impact a person's life and behavior. Let's break down the different types of delusions. There's quite a variety, and each has its own unique characteristics. Imagine believing that a celebrity or someone important is in love with you, even though you've never met. That's erotomania in a nutshell. People with this delusion might interpret random events as secret messages from their lover. Persecutory delusions is another interesting of delusion, and it is probably the type most people are familiar with. It involves believing that others are out to get you, spy on you, or harm you in some way. It's like living in a constant state of suspicion and fear. Surprisingly, persecutory delusions are also a type of paranoia. Now, paranoia refers to constantly doubting and mistrusting other people without reason. It only becomes persecutory delusion when those feelings of paranoia become a more fixed belief. Ever met someone who truly believed they were a reincarnated historical figure or had special powers? That's a grandiose delusion. People with these delusions might think they're incredibly important, powerful, or gifted in ways that just aren't realistic. And the worst part is, they expect others to treat them specially too. Next, jealous delusions. Now this one's a relationship wrecker. People with jealous delusions are convinced their partner is cheating on them, despite having no evidence. They might misinterpret innocent actions as proof of infidelity. Then there's a type of delusion that revolves around the body. It's called somatic delusions. It occurs when a person believes they have a terrible disease, despite medical tests showing otherwise, or thinks that parts of their body are misshapen or not functioning when they're actually fine. Now that we've covered the types, let's look at the broader categories that delusions can fall into. There are four main ones. Bizarre delusions are the delusions that make you go, wait, what? They're completely implausible and not even remotely possible in real life. For example, believing that aliens have replaced your internal organs with advanced technology. Non-bizarre delusions, on the other hand, are beliefs that could technically be possible, even if they're not true, like thinking your neighbor is plotting to steal your car. It's unlikely, but not impossible in the realm of reality. Then there are mood-congruent delusions, which are delusions that match up with a person's emotional state. For example, if someone's depressed, they might have delusions about being worthless or deserving punishment. And if they're manic, they might believe they're invincible or have special powers. Mood-neutral delusions, on the other hand, are those delusions that aren't connected to a person's mood. They persist regardless of how the person is feeling emotionally. Surprisingly, anyone can have delusions, but some factors such as a family history of mental illness and major life changes can increase the risk. So what exactly causes this experience? Well, it's not a simple answer because delusions can be symptoms of various mental health conditions, like schizophrenia and some mood disorders. But they can also pop up due to other factors like brain injuries or tumors, substance abuse, severe stress, trauma, and so on. When we talk about delusions, it's not just about thoughts and behaviors. There are actual changes happening in the brain. One key player in delusions is dopamine, a neurotransmitter that's involved in reward, motivation, and learning. Research has shown that people experiencing delusions often have an overactive dopamine system. This excess dopamine can lead to what scientists call aberrant salience. Basically, the brain starts attaching importance to things that aren't actually significant, like a radio sensitive to every little signal. But it's not just dopamine, though. Other neurotransmitters like serotonin and glutamate are also involved. These chemical messengers work together in a delicate balance, and when that balance is disrupted, it can contribute to the development of delusions. Now, the frontal lobe is like the brain's CEO, involved in reasoning, planning, and decision-making, while the temporal lobe plays a role in processing sensory input and memory. So changes in these areas might help explain why people with delusions have trouble distinguishing between what's real and what's not. It is important to also note that delusions aren't just about brain structure and chemistry, they also involve how we process information. In fact, people with delusions often show particular cognitive biases or ways of thinking that reinforce their beliefs. For instance, they might show a jumping to conclusions bias, where they make decisions based on very little evidence. They might also have trouble considering alternative explanations for events, a process known as belief inflexibility. Well, it isn't all bad news. There's some good news too, which is that our brains are adaptable. This property, called neuroplasticity, means that the brain changes we see in delusions aren't necessarily permanent. Antipsychotics and cognitive behavioral therapy help with it. The medications work by modulating neurotransmitter systems, particularly dopamine. Over time, this leads to changes in brain function and connectivity. Interestingly, cognitive behavioral therapy for delusions doesn't just work on a psychological level, it can also change brain activity. In fact, studies have shown that successful CBT is associated with changes in how the brain processes information. Delusions are complex and can be challenging to understand and deal with, but with increased awareness and proper treatment, many people can learn to manage their delusions and lead fulfilling lives. Remember, mental health is just as important as physical health, so if you're concerned about delusions or any other mental health issues, don't hesitate to seek help. There's no shame in reaching out. In fact, it's one of the bravest things you can do. Thanks for watching.